Good job. Sunday. Very proud. How can we access an inspiration from on high, even when God has not decided to shine this on us? It's not an ikratson. How can we initiate that process of getting the initiation from on high, so we then have the motivation, the koach, to then give our animal soul over to God? And we said that the way to do that is through... What's the way to do that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How do we, I know it's Sunday morning,
I'm just getting organized.
how do we trigger an Isra de la Ela from on high to then make sure that God inspires us so we can then respond with our Isra de la Torah, right? We said that Torah is the way we can access that inspiration from on high that is given to our godly soul. And the reason for that is because, why is Torah accessing this Isra de la Ela for us, drawing down this inspiration from on high?
Because it's related to the cheder, to the king's cheder, which stands for chesed, din, and rachamim.
Correct.
Which is also used to describe the Torah.
Correct. And how does that verse, Haviyani HaMelech Hadar, that the king brought me into his chamber, into Torah, as you said, Cheder is Torah, how does that teach us why Torah is the one that brings us the Isra de la Ela? Why not something else? Why not meditation? Why not song? Why not mitzvahs? Why Torah specifically?
Because we explained it according to the verse of
Right.
That like draw me down, and after you I will run. The king has brought me into his chamber is referring to like an Esther de la Ela will lead to an Esther de la Santa if we learn by learning Torah.
Okay. Why, by learning Torah, do we get the Isra de la Ela?
We have it inside ourselves, so that triggers it.
Right. Because we learned the whole Torah when we were in our mother's womb, we already have that within us, stamped onto our soul. And therefore, this is something that we own already, this ability to be connected and inspired from on high. When we learn something in Torah that connects us to the level of our soul that learned that in the past, which is already close to God, and that awakens within us that feeling of inspiration. So the truth is, Sophie, what you were saying about the Mashcheni is the way we're going to explain it in the next chapter, which is that first we get inspired from God, Mashcheni, then we respond, then God inspires us again, which is that the king brings us into his chamber. And that's going to be correlated to Pesach, Sfirat Omer, and Shavuot. Now, what the Alter Rebbe has done, he took this end verse of Haviyani HaMelech Hadar, and he says this is a lesson to teach us that we can bring this Mashcheni down ourselves, which is, maybe that's what you were referring to when you were saying, but this is not talking about another Isra de la Ela that comes as a response to the Isra de la Sata. This is talking about any time that we want to experience inspiration and motivation, we can do that through Torah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I thought we were explaining it from the verse, the whole thing.
Yes. So how does that fall into the whole verse in terms of sequential? That's what we're going to see in the next. That's what we're going to see in the next chapter. That God inspires us, we respond. God inspires us again, we respond again, and this is kind of like it's not a side point, but it's the Alter Rebbe here is saying that the end of the verse is adding something new to what we've spoken about until now, which is this concept of Torah. Okay, so we're going to read this inside. We started reading inside already again. I said on last week on Tuesday, but we're going to start again just because I don't want to continue reading in the middle. So from the top of page 39, after we have brought our animal soul on board and we need inspiration and God is not giving us another Mashcheni we can access that moshcheni on our own through Torah learning. Okay? So let's read inside. There's a lot going on in what we're reading right now, okay? So I would say this is time to like really focus, and if you have a question, let me know. Like make sure that it's making sense, the flow is making sense. Otherwise, it's definitely a lot what we're going to be reading now. It's jumping around. Okay, so however, when we refine our coarseness and awaken our animal soul to love Hashem, then this is the love of Hashem that is actually felt emotionally in the heart. It has the power to transform our material life fully. Oh, sorry. My phone on silent. I'll never remember that Sunday for us is work. Okay. V'achar kach. And then after this, after we have had the moshcheni and we put in our work and now we feel stuck because another moshcheni has not arrived, good morning, we're on page 39. We have now the end of the verse from Shir Hashirim, Heviyani Hamelech Chadarav. And see here, it says me is underlined. The king has brought me into his chambers. We switch from plural back to singular. Moshcheni, pull me up. We said that's God inspiring the godly soul, singular. Then as a response to that, we will run after you, plural. That's the godly soul and the animal soul. Now we're switching back to the singular. The king has brought me, because this is referring to another Isros D'Le'ela that we can initiate through Torah. And Isros D'Le'ela only speaks to our godly soul. So, Haviyani Amelech Hadar, the king has brought me into his chambers in the past tense. And the Shon Yachid, it is written in singular. Ki Chadarov Hainu Shita Sidrei Mishnah. The Chadarov in this verse is referring to the 6 orders of the Mishnah. Shehem Bechinas Chesed Gevura Tiferes, referring to Chesed, kindness, Gevura, strictness, severity, judgment, Tiferes, which is, here it says compromise, which is interesting, beauty, mercy, compassion. And that's interesting, compromise, because really Tiferes is when you put yourself in the shoes of the other person, see it from their perspective, and I guess that's how you can come to a compromise. And we have all 3 of these elements when it comes to the halachot, the laws that we learn from the Mishnah in Torah. So, Chesed, Din, Rachamim, Roshe, Tevos, Cheder. The acronym for the word Cheder in this verse is Chesed, leniency, Din, judgment, Rachamim, mercy, compassion, we can say compromise. Shemihem, that from these 3 attributes, Nimshach, it's drawn down into our lives, Kasher, apostle, some ruling, whether this is kosher or this is not kosher, Tameh or Tahar, whether this is pure or impure, Chayav or Zakai, whether somebody is, Chayav means, again, I always forget this word, when someone is guilty, right? Guilty or Zakai. It also means obligated, yes, whether you're obligated to do something. But in this context, Chayav would mean somebody who is, like there's a guilty verdict about him. Here it says condemned, that's a very big word. The Zakai. Zakai means that he has been seen to be innocent, okay? So the way that we lead our day-to-day life through Torah gets drawn down through Chesed, Din, and Rachamim. And therefore, when we say that the king brought us into his chamber, the chamber is referring to Torah. And the Heviyani, when it says that the king has brought me, that is in past tense. Lishon Avar, in past tense. Dahainu, which means, Kamama Razal, as it says in the Gemara, Kshahatinok beveten imo, when a baby is in the stomach of his mother, Malamde Moisei HaTorah Kula, we teach the baby the entire Torah. And this is the reason why Haviyani is in past tense. Dahainu, this means, while the soul is still in a pregnant state above, it's going through its process of getting ready to descend into the body, it learns the entire Torah. And from the fact that the soul has already learned the entire Torah in its past, when we learn Torah again from the Chadar, when we enter the chamber of Torah, of God, Nimshach HaKoach Acharkach, we can draw down the power after our Torah learning, Shayar Lo Or Hashem, that Hashem's light should shine on him. The Koach HaAva V'Yira Liyos Moshcheni. And then he gets the power and the love and the fear to have an experience of what we call mashcheni, of this inspiration from on high, where he feels love and fear for God, where the natural hidden love of his godly soul comes forth into his experience. Okay? So far we're good? This we elaborated and explained on Wednesday. Dahainu. We're going to continue to explain. So Dahainu, this means, why does Torah draw down an Isra D'Le'ela? Because he has already in the past been entered into the king's chambers when his soul was in a pregnancy state. And now, in order for a person himself to be able to draw down this Isra D'Le'ela, which is represented by the beginning of the verse, Adam Ki Yakriv, when God will bring us close. If a person feels like he needs this inspiration now and he wants to draw this down, the solution is through involving himself in Torah. Shehi Bechinas Adam, because this is also called Adam, the Torah. So if he wants an Adam Ki Yakriv, if he wants God on high to bring him close, Torah will be able to do that. Why? Because Torah, Shehi Bechinas Adam, Torah is also the level of man, Ramach Pigodim Ramach Evarim, the 248 positive commandments corresponding to the 248 organs, limbs, the Shasa and the 365 negative commandments of the Torah correspond to the Shasagidim, the 365 sinews and veins. We good so far? V'lochen. And therefore, al yadei esek Torah, specifically through involving oneself with Torah, nimshach lihiyos Ki Yakriv. We said Torah is the Adam. Through the Adam, through the Torah, we can get to Ki Yakriv, to be brought close to God, to have an inspiration from on high, where our godly soul's love for God is felt. Has anyone felt that before, that when they really involve themselves in Torah learning, it becomes a little bit easier to feel inspired to do the day-to-day service of God? And that when maybe you've noticed times where you haven't had that Torah, everything feels a bit harder, your davening feels harder, right? And this is really the idea of the Chassidus before davening, that there's an idea to learn Chassidus before davening. We want to get that inspiration to then be able to have the motivation and that love for God from our godly soul already present, so we can have a proper davening.
So when it says Torah, it's not just talking about the written Torah. It's
Correct.
About, like any sort of
Torah
commentary and anything that's based in Torah.
Yeah. It actually specifically brings the Mishnah as the example here of Torah, which is the oral Torah. Yeah. As it is written, this is from the Ashrei, and again, for those who are here on Tuesday, we read this already, but now we're going to get the flow of it. Karov Hashem l'chol karav. God is close to all those to call out to Him, which here is insinuating that in order for God to bring us close, we are able to call out to Him. In order to get an Isra D'Le'ela, we can request that Isra D'Le'ela. So God is close. God brings close. Karov Hashem, God brings close. L'chol karav, those who call out to Him. L'chol asher yikra'uhu ve'emet. How do we call out? To all those who call out to God in truth. Ve'ein emet ela Torah. And as it says in the Gemara, there's no truth other than Torah. So this verse, God is close to all those who call out to Him, who call out to Him in truth, says, if you want God to bring your godly soul close, to give you an Isra D'Le'ela, call out to Him with the words of Torah. 43. And this is also why, regarding involving oneself with Torah, it says in Yeshaya, in Isaiah, those who hold tight to my strength will make peace for me, peace He will make for me. The strength of God is Oz. The Oz is referred to as Torah. So those who strengthen themselves in Torah will make peace for me, peace He will make for me. It says peace twice. It seems to be redundant. Beis pa'amim shalom. The verse mentions peace twice. It seems to only have been necessary once. Why? Because, as it says in another verse, as it says in another verse in Yeshaya, Shalom, shalom, l'rachok v'l'karov. Peace, peace for those who are far and for those who are close. So the Alter Rebbe here is saying that the peace that Torah represents is for those who are far and for those who are close. For those who feel already that connection and that inspiration for God, there's Torah, for him to feel even more close. For those who feel far, there's Torah as well, that when he learns Torah, it will bring him close. Get the idea of that? Idea of shalom, shalom? Okay. The kevan sheken, and since this is so, that Torah is a way of peace, of connecting to God for those who feel close and for those who feel far away. Nimshach mizeh, we can draw down from this, gam ken bechinas shalom de l'racham, the level of peace for those who are far away, sheyihi nasa karav, that he should be able to become close. How do we become close to God and feel inspired even when we feel far away and demotivated? Through learning Torah. The zel, and this is another meaning of the verse, Adam Ki Yakriv mikem, when man will bring close. So we had the pshat, the simple meaning of Adam Ki Yakriv mikem, when a Jewish person will bring a sacrifice. The deeper meaning, we said, was when Adam ha'elyon, when God will bring our godly soul close. And another way to look at it is when the Torah will bring us close to God. Adam, when the Torah, Ki Yakriv mikem, will bring our godly soul close. Okay? V'zeu tishmaru lahakriv li. The Alter Rebbe is bringing more verses to bring Torah into the whole conversation here of the sacrifices and how we bring ourselves close to God. These are verses that we say every morning in the korbanot. Tzavet b'nei Yisrael v'amarta lehem es korban yilach med ishrei nechach. God told Moshe, command the Jewish people, say to them that these commandments will be for me a pleasurable aroma. Tishmaru lahakriv li. Make sure to guard this and to bring it close. The tishmaru here is being explained also as Torah. That if you want to come close to me in the sacrifices, you can do that through Torah. Shomer zu Mishnah. Shomer, the guarding, is also referring to the Mishnah. Sha'al yadei zeh, that through this, through the Torah, nimshach liyos lahakriv li, we can be drawn to be close to God. So the Alter Rebbe is bringing different verses from the Torah to, is the word corroborate? Is that a correct word? Feels very fancy, but to corroborate, yeah? Getting fancier. His point, okay? Barabbas, and also in Mishnah, in the Medrash Rabbah, it says, Rabbah is referring to Medrash, the Koheles, in the Medrash of Koheles of Ecclesiastes, al Pasuk, Adam echad me'elef matzasi, it says in Koheles, I have found one man among 1,000. Ze Moshe sheba le'elef dar, the Medrash says, who is this one man I found among 1,000? This is Moshe, who came 1,000 generations after the creation of the world. I don't know exactly how that works, that it was 1,000 generations, but Noah was how many generations from the creation of the world? I think that there's like a whole...
There's a book.
There's a book?
There's a book
which
that
says,
has a time.
right, that has that whole timeline.
It says like
The
people who came
right,
after.
right. So I know that there's Noah was a certain amount, and then Avraham, and then Moshe. Here it's saying Moshe came 1,000 generations after creation of the world to give us the Torah. So who's the man among 1,000? It is, who's this Adam? This is Moshe. This is another way now that the Alter Rebbe is saying, we learn from the verse, Adam Ki Yakriv mikem, that it's referring to Torah that brings us close. Because Moshe is the man we refer to as Adam, who gave us the Torah, and through the Torah we can be brought close to God. Okay? So, the Zeh Moshe Sheba le'elef dar, this is Moshe, who came after 1,000 generations. Hadahu tichsiv davar tsiva le'elef dar. It is he who it's referring to in the verse, a man who came among 1,000. This man, this Adam, is referring to Moshe. So this is another interpretation of Adam Ki Yakriv mikem, which is actually referring to Moshe, who gave us the Torah to enable us to come close to God. This is another way of interpreting the verse of Adam Ki Yakriv, Dahainu al Yadei Torah, that we can be brought close to God and get this Isrus Le'ela through Torah. V'zeu daber al bnei Yisrael v'amarta lehem Adam Ki Yakriv. This is what it refers to when it says that God spoke to Moshe and said, speak to the Jewish people and say to them, Adam Ki Yakriv mikem. This is now the wrap-up almost of the secret behind this verse, which is that it exists because God is telling Moshe, tell the Jewish people that even when you don't have sacrifices, that forever you have this concept of that you can be drawn close to God, and the message is to respond right away with your animal soul. And through the Torah study that inspires us, we then make sure to respond with min habehema takrivu, with our animal soul. This is adding that, yes, Torah learning can inspire us, but it's an inspiration that speaks to our godly soul, right? Haviyani hamelech hadar, the king has brought me, singular, into his chamber, and therefore, after learning Torah and getting inspired, our job is to apply that Torah that we learned. And through that, actually, our Torah, it's brought in other places, gets an elevation as well. When we learn Torah in order to know how to do the mitzvahs, the Torah that we learn gets elevated in a way that if we learned Torah without having in mind to apply that into our day-to-day life, it couldn't have been elevated in that same way. It's almost like when you learn Torah just for the inspiration, Torah is giving something to you. When you learn Torah to be able to then apply that, you're giving something back to Torah. That's something that's explained in other places of Chassidus, how we actually give back to Torah. Okay?
What are we giving to? Like what? The Torah is not a person.
Good question. Good question. The Torah is God's wisdom. And God's wisdom exists on different, almost levels of reality, depending on how much it can comprehend of God. And the way that we interact with God's wisdom in this world is actually fulfilling the purpose for why God's wisdom exists. God condensed his wisdom in a way that the world could exist so that we could serve him in this world. So when we actually fulfill the purpose for Torah, for God's wisdom in this world, we add something to all the highest levels of Torah, because the purpose for why they exist is now being fulfilled. Does that make sense? For those who haven't heard that idea, it's like a radical idea. It's one of the foundational actual concepts of Chassidus. We also add something to the Adam Ha'elyon when we do mitzvahs, because also God, as he channeled himself into these Sefirot, exists for the purpose of man down here serving him through mitzvahs. So when we do that, we give back. We add light into the Sefirot of Atzilut, and it's like a whole positive feedback loop. Yes, that's it.
Yeah, I'm learning a sikha on Parak Mem Aleph of Tanya, which talks about how like the concept of like the whole world was created for me, and it's talking about how like Adam Harishon like we could see so clearly like everything that he did had an impact on the whole entire world. Like when he said that it had an impact on the whole world, bringing it down levels. So too, each and every single person, when we do a mitzvah or when we sin, it has an instrumental effect on every single spirit, on all the worlds, at all times.
Wow. That's very powerful. And that's why it says that if you save a life, you're saving a whole world, right? Because every person has that ability to change the world.
To do one thing, and Mashiach will come.
Right? To literally change the world. And so we have that positive feedback loop when it comes to us giving back to Torah. We have that positive feedback loop when it comes to our interaction with Torah. Because when we learn Torah, we get inspired. And then if we take the message of this verse and we take that inspiration, we apply it to our day-to-day action, then we then trigger another inspiration, right? Because God says, when you put the work in, I'm going to inspire you. And then we get that positive feedback loop in that same way again, where we can actually maintain consistently our service of God. Through Torah study, we then need to remember right away, minha behema takrivu, to bring our animal soul on board, to refine our animal soul, as we mentioned above, this is something that the Alter Rebbe didn't say until now, that the way that we sacrifice our animal soul is actually through fulfilling the mitzvahs, because mitzvahs are made in a way that the physical body has to engage with it and has to and gets elevated and refined in that process. As it says here, Sheha mitzvah yesh la skula pratis. Specifically, a mitzvah has a special power, to elevate the animal soul. It's almost like God made the mitzvahs in a way that can fit with the animal soul, so that when the animal soul is involved in the mitzvah, it gets elevated. As opposed to Torah, which is more made fits the godly soul, right? Which is why when we learn Torah, it can be talking about all different periods of time. We can learn about bringing sacrifices in the temple, and even though we can't bring the sacrifice right now, our godly soul, because it's above time and space, gets that elevation of that, right? But mitzvahs are limited to right now, right here. That's our animal soul. So when we engage in mitzvahs, that's already changing the animal soul, right? So The mitzvah has a special way of elevating the animal soul, and to tie it, unite the animal soul with God's infinite light. As it says, Ki tzedakah teromim gai, that tzedakah elevates a nation. And tzedakah, as the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, is actually the mitzvah that represents all mitzvahs, charity. Okay? Every mitzvah is compared to charity. Charity is about giving life to the poor and picking up their spirit. So too, every mitzvah is about drawing down life and light from Hashem to the created beings that are spiritually poor and lifting them up spiritually. Okay? So do we get chapter 4? It's a lot. There's a lot of different verses, but I hope that now we can understand that this is another interpretation that the Alter Rebbe is giving us for the verse of Adam Ki Yakriv, that when God brings us close, it's saying that when Torah brings us close, we too should respond with our animal, takriv et korbanchem, with our animal soul. And now, we are getting to Pesach, Sfiras HaOmer, and Shavuot. We will now apply everything that we learned to the time that we're holding in right now. Perfect timing, right? Well, I thought we were going to learn like another Sfiras HaOmer mimer and a Shavuot mimer, but I think that we really own this one. We needed this, and we're owning this. And as I said, the whole mimer is about taking what you learn and taking the inspiration and owning it. And I think that that's really what we're doing in the process of learning this mimer. 49, page. That's weird that it says page 49. Wasn't this also page 49? I guess not. Oh, it's 39. Okay, never mind. We want 39 or 40. Okay. Chapter 5. What we're going to do now is I'm going to read it inside, okay? Because this is now ideas that we're familiar with, that we've spoken about a lot. How does Pesach fall into this idea of Adam Ki Yakriv? Let me write it on the board quickly. Just Adam Ki Yakriv you can. Adam Ki Yakriv. And we're going to now see which...
Oh, I just finished the... sorry. We just finished Vayikra, and this is from Vayikra, right?
That's right. Another feedback loop. The end is rooted in the beginning. That's right. We just finished Vayikra.
Wait, what's the connection? This pasuk?
This is the
from the
second
beginning
verse.
of Vayikra.
All the way at the beginning. We just finished.
We just finished this.
Did we? We
This
didn't
pasuk.
start this at the beginning of Vayikra. No.
Not right at the beginning.
Not right, but like pretty. So Adam, Ki, Yakriv, Mikem, ... You have the Hema Minatzon from the different animals. Takrivu, et Kor. And we're going to connect this with the Mashcheni as well. Okay? It's like this.
We have other colors if you want.
Do we?
Don't use the orange one. No, you can use the orange one.
Okay, we have the Mashcheni. No.
What? Really? We just got that mark for like 3 days ago.
Maybe we need to keep them in like a I don't know, like a climate controlled box.
Yani,
Just like Tupperware so that they stay moist.
Okay. Yani. Okay, we're going to read and do it at the same time because this is now this is much smoother reading. Okay, Vihine, chapter 5, final chapter. Alpi kol hanal, based on everything that we've said. Hanal stands for haniskar le'el, everything that we mentioned above. Yuva, now we can understand Gamken as well. Inyan Pesach or Sfiras HaOmer. What is up with Pesach and Sfiras HaOmer and the connection between them, and what this deeper meaning of them is. So keep the Pesach. What do we know about Pesach? Pesach is a time of Isrusa de La'ela. Why is Pesach a time of Isrusa de La'ela?
Yeah, all of our like Imuna energy for the year.
There we go.
The gates are open. But it's honestly for me, it did not feel like an Isrusa de La'ela moment. Like I was really frustrated. I was like, what's going on here? Like,
I completely feel you. At the Seder this year. Oh, is something. Oh, okay. at the Seder this year, my kids were having tantrums. It started like
Yeah.
10 o'clock at night. And I was saying to my husband, I was like, I'm not feeling it. I'm like, because I'd given a class about how Pesach is a time to appreciate all the free gifts you've been given. And I was sitting there and I was like, I was in such a bad mood. I was so hungry. And then he said something that helped me switch. I don't know what he said, but it helped me like switch my, it's just like, look around, this is good, even though it's not exactly how you expected it. And I think that the lesson there was that sometimes the Isra Leila, it takes some work from us to be able to be a vessel for it. It's there. Are we opening ourselves up to it? Are we allowing that even if things are confusing or not how we expected, to just like to be there? Which I was not, especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
You had something to say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, connecting to like the original Pesach, like Hashem did a huge miracle for us, and we didn't do any work or anything to deserve it. We were like almost on the last level of impurity.
Correct.
And he took us out of Egypt, and he did all the makos, and he split the sea for us. He did all these great miracles. So it was really like a huge like revelation of godliness and of bringing us close to him.
And of literally pulling us up, like pulling us out of Egypt, literally, right?
Yeah.
100%. So that was what the original Pesach represented. And every year that energy is brought down again. And we tap into that. Again, whether we can feel that same level of, 10 plagues that we felt then and the splitting of the sea, or whether it's more subtle. It's happened. Something that's helpful to remember with Pesach, even if any of these times, you're going to learn every holiday that you're going to learn about the incredible inspiration and elevation that's going on that day. And then you might get to that day and be like, where are you? Like, I don't see you.
That's so true.
Yeah. And it's helpful to remember that our godly soul is getting that.
Yeah.
Our godly soul is getting that. And how can I tap more into my godly soul right now, even in a small way? Because usually when we don't feel it, it's because we're in animal soul consciousness. Our animal soul, as we've been learning in this moment, doesn't feel any of that. So if you're feeling triggered or disappointed or whatever it is, you're in animal soul consciousness. Your animal soul isn't feeling Pesach. It's not feeling Shavuot. It's not feeling any of these. Again, unless we've done really hard work to bring it on board.
Like, why are we not having pasta and bread?
Yeah, and it's like it's 10 o'clock. It's like it's
like feverish and
no.
constipated.
Oh no.
And
You're
I
sick,
was
that does
so
not help.
miserable. And also, my teacher's kids were screaming and crying till 3 in the morning, and I was just like, "This is Pesach."
Yep.
And also, I didn't
Welcome.
shower for 3 days, so I was.
Oh, he was in the U.S.
No, I was here, but
Oh, you were here.
because I don't have like a settled place, I like kept it longer.
Oh my
gosh. Yeah.
Wow.
I was here, and it was my first. My teacher's husband, the rabbi, he was like, "Is this your first Yontif in Israel?" I was like, "My guy, this is my first Yontif." And I got the most intense one.
Wow. Yeah. It was something for me that I realized then as well, that I need to be more aware of of where I'm, like for me personally in my life with the kids and everything. I need to do more preparation to be able to actually get to the Seder or to whatever holiday it is in a way that I can leave the animal soul consciousness. Because if you haven't done that work, and then everything is like that physical preparatory work of just like, for me, it's like, okay, make sure that the kids are fed before, and bring them activities and things that they can do, and just like, I don't know, certain things that I just learned along the way. If I do all those things, that preparation, then again, bringing the animal soul on board, like how can my animal soul be calm in this situation and not feel so overwhelmed that it's overshadowing the godly soul's high, right?
I wonder though if there is even a way to actually do that, because it's almost like all the conditions are set up so that you like can't fly away with the spiritual energy. Like you're so grounded in the physical because you're doing all this preparation. Your routines are completely off. Your kids aren't in school. Like everybody's animal soul is like, what's going on here? And it's like dragging you. And I was thinking like during this, afterwards, I was like, the only way I can understand it is that like it must be that like we have to be so grounded in the non-spiritual, so that we can actually hold that spiritual energy that's going to take us through the rest of the year without just like our souls leaving our bodies.
Yeah. And I think that something that prepares us for that, as well as you're saying, like, even though you can't fully prepare for the fact that like you're going to be hungry because you're supposed to be hungry at the Seder, and that the kids are crying because they're supposed to be at the Seder, what are you supposed to do? Like, they need to be there, the Madishtana, right?
Yeah.
I think that learning before helps a lot. The more you learn Torah before the holiday and you prepare yourself spiritually, the more in tune you feel with your godly soul, even if your animal soul is like, this is whack, right? And so the more you learn for a holiday, the more you have what to zone into and to switch modes to, even when things feel chaotic. But if you haven't had that learning, then it's like, what is this even then? That makes sense?
I did also feel like there was not a lot of like actually learning leading up, because like for like a week you're not in school, and then like Pesach starts and
you're cleaning and you're cooking and
yep.
Welcome. Yes.
But also I really do think like our souls are like, since we're in this like energetic station where we're like getting so close to Hashem, our souls are like getting like magnetically pulled to Hashem, and our animal souls, like our divine souls, are like getting magnetic, and our animal souls have to be like, no, get back here.
Yeah.
Like, you're here for a reason.
Yep. Well, I hope I get to that stage where my godly soul is just flying away, that I have to bring myself back. That's the goal. But hopefully, we are approaching Shavuot now.
Yeah.
And it's a big one, and hopefully this learning that we're doing and this preparation and the sphera and the work can really help that no matter where we find ourselves, and even if the meal we're expecting milchiks and they're only giving fleishiks, or I don't know what, things are gonna happen. You'll be like, I was waiting for the cheese. Some people, they have like cheesecake, a little piece in the morning, and then they have just a meaty meal. I don't know. Yeah, because on Yom Tov you're meant to have meat.
I didn't know it's a thing.
Yes, it's a thing. So that's why I'm already warning you. Every Chag you're supposed to have meat, because meat is like a prestigious food, to give honor, to celebrate the holiday. And Shavuot is a Chag, and we're supposed to have dairy. And so very often what in Chabad they'll do is they'll have like dairy and then wait an hour and then have meat, because you only have to wait an hour between. Some people wait a little less, but it depends. So I'm saying, like, almost every time we go into these situations, something's not going to go as expected. It's very rare for it all to just be love and butterflies and roses. Just Hashem makes things work out that way, and especially then as you end up growing your family, and as beautiful as it is to have everyone around the table, it's also like not. So it's very, very important to, I think, to have that learning beforehand, and to know that it's not going to look in this picture perfect thing, and you might not feel as much as you expected to feel, but when we put the work in before and on the day itself, it's doing something for us. We're receiving the Torah. When we're doing it in a conscious way, we're connecting to Torah in a way that our year is going to be different, and hopefully we can also feel inspired, and we can go hear the Aseret HaDibrot and enjoy our milchiks, our dairy, and all of that. But yeah, also I think Chabad, I know, at night doesn't really usually have dairy meals. Usually it's a meat meal at night, something in the morning. But also every family really has their own thing. So yeah, and some people are lactose intolerant, so then that just completely goes out the window. That whole part of it. My favorite part of Shavuos is the milchiks. Like, I love dairy food. So since I'm a kid, that's been my highlight of Shavuos. And then sometimes I ended up at meals, and I'm like, where's the cheesecake? What happened to my Chag? All right. Okay, so we said that Pesach is an Isra Leila. It's the Mashcheni. It's the Adam Ki Yakriv, God bringing us close. This speaks to our godly soul, and this is the stage number one. This is step number one. So we see Ki Pesach hu Isra Leila. Pesach is an inspiration from on high. La'orer Isra Sata, for the purpose of awakening our Isra Sata, for the purpose of us responding to all the free gifts that we got. Isra Leila. The purpose of the Isra Leila is to awaken the desire of our godly soul to go up to God. Ratzo means to yearn, I think. Right? Yearn. And then shuv means that idea of like coming back down, right? But our animal soul has still not been transformed at all. When we get this Isras Le'ela, when the original Isras Le'ela happened on Pesach, and when we re-experience that every year, our animal soul has not been changed. It's still whining and complaining and got all of its issues. But our godly soul is excited. That's why it says in Parshas Bashalach, in the story of the Jewish people leaving Egypt, Ki barach ha'am, that the people escaped. Why did the people escape Egypt? Paro was like, leave. We had got full permission already to leave when we wanted, and we left in haste. Why did we escape? The Alter Rebbe talks about this in Tani. He asks this question, chapter 31. Why did they escape? Why did they leave straight away? Why didn't they take a week to gather, what, they were like 1 million people, to arrange things, to let their dough rise?
They didn't leave straight away. They waited till the morning.
They waited till the morning, right? They didn't leave that night because they didn't want to leave like thieves in the night. They wanted to show. But the next day, that's a bit dramatic. I mean, 1 million people picking up and leaving, everything that they've been there for 200 years, right? And to the point that we have matzah because the dough didn't have time to rise. It was that in haste. Why did they leave so immediately?
You know, like past grandmas would be like, oh, that's my mom's like teacups. Like, oh, why should we go? There's so much stuff. And we just came with these teacups.
There you go. There you go. If we don't run out, then the godly soul's inspiration is going to leave. The Isras Le'ela, we said, by definition, is temporary. So if we waited, then that high that we felt would leave, and then what would we be left with? The animal soul that's saying, wait a second, right? First of all, what are we going to pack? You know, how can we leave this life behind? That's all we know. Everyone who left then had been born into Egypt. It was their life. And also, where are we going again? Oh, we're going to a desert. Where are we going to get water? We're like a lot of people. Where are we going to get food? There's bandits in the desert, and there are snakes, and there are, like, we don't have enough clothes for this, right? So they escaped. Who did they run away from? Not from Parai. Because Parai would have, if they said, listen, Parai, we need a week, we'd be like, sure, right? They were escaping from, the Alter Rebbe says, the Parai within themselves, their animal soul that was still in a slave mentality, that still had a lot of worries and fears. They were running so that they could ride that wave of the Isras Le'ela enough to get over the border, to have that faith, that leap of faith that Pesach represents, to follow God into the desert. So that's why it says, Ki barach ha'am, because they were running away from their animal soul. V'zeu ki inyan Adam Ki Yakriv mikem. And this is the idea of what's represented in Adam Ki Yakriv mikem, when God will bring us close, when God will inspire our godly soul to feel excited about God, to feel that love for Him in a tangible way. Called Daidi Medalig al Haharim. This is the sound of my beloved coming skipping over the mountains. This is the mountain of Torah's coming. The skipping, the leaps. Pesach means, what does Pesach mean? Passover, Pesach, that God leapt over the houses of the Jewish people. This is all Pesach time. It's leaps that we take in our Judaism, in our relationship with God. Shehu b'zchut Torah, shenit kreit har, that this comes in the merit of Torah. God took us out of Egypt so He can give us the Torah, which is called har. Yisu harem shalom la'am. We said shalom is called Torah, and so the harem and shalom. Okay, we're not going to get. This is all verses the Alter Rebbe is bringing to explain to us the idea of this, the leaps that we took on Pesach. Lachen, therefore, achar kach, after we left Egypt, what does God command us to do right away? The Omer. From the second night of Pesach till Shavuos. Correct? Learning, fixing yourself, preparing yourself. Straight away, the Rambam says that the Jewish... I think, Sophie, you wanted me to check this. Did they count the Omer in the desert? He'll ask me that.
We were discussing it.
Maybe Hendel asked it. The Rambam is the one who says that the source for the idea of the counting, well, first of all, we're told in the Torah, but because the Jewish people started to count right away, right after they left Egypt. So from the second day, we start counting. We said, what does the counting represent? Sfirat Omer is the refinement process, right? The Omer offering, which was brought the second day of Shavuot, is barley, is animal food, because that's where we start right away to bring our animal soul on board.
So they were counting because they knew that Moshe was supposed to come back after 49 days, right? And
That was later. That was not yet. They were counting because Moshe told them, because Moshe told them that you're going to get the Torah in 49 days from now, in 50 days.
Okay.
So they were like, oh my gosh, we're so excited.
Yeah.
Let's make a countdown. Right? And also let's prepare ourselves.
Yet, they didn't have the Torah.
Right. Right. So that didn't actually mean that they were studying the Torah yet. They had gotten some mitzvahs, and it was the refinement process. They were idol worshippers when they left Egypt, like full on, in the full sense of the word. So they had to really leave that all behind, shed that, do that work. Thank you so much. So they had this. They didn't believe in God when they were in Egypt. They really didn't. Moshe came and was like, "Hi, I'm here to save you." They're like, "Who are you? You know, we don't believe you." They were worshiping idols. They didn't believe in God. Then the Isra de La'ela came, Pesach. They got emunah, right? And that's when we get this emun. We get belief in God. So now they believed in God, but their godly soul believed in God. Their animal soul still didn't believe in God. And then we have that process of actually change. They changed who they were to the point that they were standing in front of the Mount Sinai 50 days later as a changed nation, as changed people. So that happened right away, right? So Pesach is the Adam Ki Yakriv Bikem, korban Hashem. When God brings us close, inspires our godly soul. Animal soul, again, is still worried about the teacups, right? How can I leave the teacups behind? And then, right away, we have Takrivot Korbanchem. We bring our sacrifice. That's the counting of the Omer. Lochen achar kach tekef umiyad. Therefore, immediately after this, B'yom Sheni, on the second day of Pesach, Hu Korban HaOmer, we bring the Korban Omer, Sa'orim from barley, which is animal food, Shehu Machal Behema, animal food, B'hiyos, Birur, Nefesh Bahamis, to then initiate a refinement of our animal soul, to bring our animal soul on board in this inspiration as well. Osfira Sa'omer, and together with the Korban Omer, the sacrifice of animal food, we also count the Omer, Usfartem Lachem, count for yourselves, which in another mimer of the Alter Rebbe, he explains that Usfartem means to count, but it also comes from the word sapir, which means to make shine. That we want to shine and clean up, so to speak, our animal soul. The word Usfartem means you shall count, and it also means, is related to words that mean to shine. As it says, Hashamayim Mesaprim Kavayit Kel. Accordingly, we can read it as Usfartim, and you shall make shine lachem, yourselves, referring to your own animal soul. Bechinos Birur, Zion, Midos, to Nefesh Bahamis, the 7 weeks that led up to receiving the Torah are the 7 emotions that we work to refine. Bahu ki inyan, and this idea of the counting of the Omer corresponds in the verse to Minha Behema, Minha Bakar Takrivot Korbanchem. That immediately after the Adam Ki Yakriv became, immediately after the Isra La'ela, after God took us out from Egypt, we respond with the bringing our animal soul. Minha Behena, Minha Bakar. Dahaino, this means Isra L'Sata. Good? We're seeing how Adam Ki Yakriv Mikem is. What's Adam Ki Yakriv Mikem when it comes to the holidays? Pesach. And then Takrivot Korbanchem is counting of the Omer, Sfirat HaOmer. Sfirat HaOmer, excuse me. Okay. And we'll see here, what's the Mashcheni? Pull me up in terms of the holidays.
Pesach.
Pesach, why?
Because he pulled us out and brought us up.
Exactly, and because it's in singular, which is our godly soul. This is the Later. This is Pesach. Literally, Pesach means leaps, right? He pulled us out. He raised us up. Acharecha narutza, after you we will run, is referring to counting the Omer. Sfirat HaOmer, right? Because it's plural. We will run. The animal soul is now being brought on board. The refinement process, which starts immediately after the Moshcheni and after the Adam Ki Yakriv. Good so far? Now, let's see where Shavuot falls in. The Azai, and then through this process of God inspiring us immediately taking that inspiration and putting it to work, the Azai al Yadei Zeh, then through this, Achar Kach B'Shavuot, Matan Torah, then on Shavuot, when we get the Torah, Hu Bechinas Isarusa de Le'ela, It's an inspiration from on high. She'achar Isra Stilasata, that comes after the Isra Stilasata. We said that this is a cycle, right? That it's a positive feedback loop. God inspires us, and if we take that inspiration and we put it to work, we make it relevant for ourselves, God promises us that when we put the work in to serve Him, He's going to gift us with another inspiration as a response to that. The more work and dedication we put into our service of God, the more excited and emotions we'll feel, and the more of a relationship we will feel like we have with God. So God inspires us, that's Pesach. We put the work in, that's Spirit Omer. And God then gifts us another inspiration as a response to our work, and that is what holiday? Shavuot. Okay? So this is the level of Hu Bechinas Isra Leila. This is the inspiration from on high. Shiachar Isra Sata, that comes after the Isra Sata. His Galus Ratzayne V'Chachmas V'Lemata, the revelation of God's will and wisdom down here. Because we said then by this time, after we've taken that inspiration, we've worked on ourselves, we are now a vessel to receive God's light in a way that we can integrate, that we can actually appreciate. So this now we'll see is another interpretation of the verse. Pesach is Moshcheni, is Spirit Omer, Shavuot is Havieni Hamalech Hadar. It's the king bringing us into his chamber, right? That's that intimate moment that we have with God on Shavuot when we received the Torah and we became a nation. So that would be Shavuot, and as you can see, it's an Isra Leila. It's Havieni, which is to the godly soul. Right? Our work after Shavuot is then to sit down and learn the Torah and respond with another Isra Stilasata. Is making sense?
So wait, so the counting of the Omer is where we are doing that Isra Stilasata, and then Shavuot is another Isra Stilasata, and then what follows Shavuot?
Life. Then we got the Torah, now we need to learn it. Now we need to follow it. Now we need to apply it. That's the Isra Stilasata that comes again.
So nothing from the Ki Yakriv verse refers to shiur?
Right, correct.
Wait, nothing from what?
The Ki Yakriv verse is not talking to us now about another Isra Leila that responds from a Isra Stilasata. Although we could say, based on chapter 4, something that maybe just clicked right now for me. Ki Yakriv Mikan is referring to Pesach, when God inspires us, right? Then we respond to Krivot Korban Chen, Spirit Omer. And then we said that there's another level of Ki Yakriv Mikan, which is Adam referring to Torah, which is the inspiration from on high that we get from Torah learning. So you could say that you actually do see that feedback loop with it here as well. Does that make sense? Based on chapter 4? Yeah?
Wait, sorry, can you say that?
Yeah, sure. We said here in the verse of Moshcheni, which we're also learning this lesson from the verse from shiur. Moshcheni is Pesach. God inspires us. So we run after Him. That's counting of the Omer. And then the king bringing us into his chamber. That's the next Isra Leila. That's Shavuot, right? Then here in this verse, so if you say, wait, but we don't see Shavuot here. We just see Pesach. Adam Ki Yakriv Mikan. God bringing us close to Him. Isra Leila, Pesach. Then, Takrivot Korban Chen, us responding with our animal tzor, counting of the Omer, whereas Shavuot here. So, chapter 4 said that Adam Ki Yakriv Mikan, that there's another level of Adam Ki Yakriv Mikan that doesn't come from God just inspiring us randomly, but God inspiring us through Torah, right? That Adam is Torah learning. So you can possibly say that there's the next level of Adam Ki Yakriv Mikan, that the feedback loop is actually Shavuot, getting that inspiration through the Torah, and then putting our work back in. So it's like a... Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah? Does that make sense? A lot of it makes sense. Yeah? Chama?
I don't think I'm at the point yet where I fully understand the meaning of these phrases.
These phrases.
But
the concept of the Isra
fine.
Leila, Isra Stilasata, Isra Leila, this is our whole life. It's also called Ratzo and Shuv. This is like Ratzo and Shuv is that yearning that we have to be spiritual and to transcend ourselves and to connect with God. And Shuv is the desire that God has, which is that we live in this world and we change the world. And it's this constant push, it's this constant being pulled from two sides. It's really, the whole Judaism is made up of these two dynamics, that we're constantly shifting from one to the other. and we want to make sure that whatever mode we're in, we're doing it properly. When we're supposed to be putting our work in, we shouldn't be waiting for the inspiration. We should put our work in. When we're getting the inspiration, we shouldn't be distracted by the animal soul. We should be present in that inspiration and holding on to it and making it meaningful. This is really our whole life, is this Ratzon and Shuv. It's also just the tension that we have between wanting to be productive and between being, putting things out there and just coming back to ourselves. And that tension that we have between that as well. I think that's really that's like a side point, but this is the Isrus Tilasata, Isrus Tilay. So tomorrow we will finish learning about Shavuot briefly. It doesn't say too much. We have a few more lines about Shavuot, and then we will also tomorrow do a little bit of that little work thing we're going to do together to apply this for ourselves. And then maybe we'll actually start learning something about Shavuot, just Shavuot. Okay. Do we see now how these verses are applying? Again, for those who are maybe more familiar, comfortable with the Hebrew, you see how this is applying here? It's just Leila, Pesach, counting the Omer, Shavuot. Yeah. Amazing. Mr. Punchline. We said that.
It's okay. I have to listen to the recording.
No, don't worry. For those who want to finish, it's 10:30. Where were we holding when you?
Well, you just put the stuff on the board.
Okay, we showed the stuff. So we said Adam Ki Yakriv.
Yeah.
That's referring to the Isrus Tilay side when talking.